Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's live stream. Let me put my overlay up on here. So, in today's live stream, what we're going to be focusing primarily on is, of course, the topic of going over why it's important to understand that muscle growth isn't instant and why that's okay. So, let me go ahead and pull this up for you guys. So before I do get started with this particular discussion and this topic, I do want to share a few things with you guys. So if you're not aware, every Wednesday I do these live streams here on Facebook at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I also have streams that I do every Tuesday and every Thursday now. So on TikTok, I do a stream every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then on my YouTube channel, I do a live stream every Thursday at the same time as well. So each of these streams, I do them at separate times. So definitely check them out if that's something that you're interested in. So another thing I do want to mention as well is that I do have a website, which is bponlinefitness.com. So it's down here at the bottom. I also do want to share that this QR code here, if you scan it, it does take you directly to my top form. So that's where you can check out all that I have to offer related to, or basically to complete the top form, it's going to lead you to, schedule a consultation with me, I should say. So just to clarify, that's what the QR code will take you to is my top form, which is where you can schedule a consultation. So I did want to share all that before we got started. So with all that being said, guys, let's go over why muscle growth isn't instant and why that's okay. So in this particular topic, we're going to go over a wide range of points in this particular discussion. And we're going to break down a little bit about how you need to approach muscle gain and how you should really emphasize it in your routine. So keep in mind that muscle growth happens after the workout, not during it. The muscle building timeline most people don't see. Strength gains versus muscle gains. The role of consistency over intensity. Recovery is the missing piece. Nutrition isn't optional for growth. Your body needs to learn before it grows. Progressive overload takes time to add up. Genetics, starting point, and individual differences, as well as the all or nothing trap. So these are all of the different points and topics that we're going to really be discussing as we go through this particular stream. So if you guys have any questions on anything that I may discuss in these streams, feel free to take the time to let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. If there's anything that you have a question about as I go through these particular topics in discussion, feel free to let me know. I will share also that these live streams that I do here on Facebook, I usually archive them to YouTube so you can watch them there as well. So definitely check that out. If you do miss them, of course, anytime they're not live. So muscle growth happens after the workout, not during it. So workouts create the signal. So a lot of times when we think of, a workout routine and we think of workouts themselves, we always sort of think that that is the main driver for growth in a routine. But it's actually not because what the workouts are doing is creating the signal. So training is what's breaking down the muscle tissue and is telling your body to adapt or stay the same. So recovery is what's going to build the muscle. Muscle repair and growth happen during rest and not while lifting. So sleep is your most anabolic tool. So deep sleep supports muscle repair, hormone balance, and recovery. One thing you're going to notice as we go through this particular discussion is that your recovery side is really what is going to benefit your muscle growth. Nutrition fuels the process, so protein is going to equal to the building blocks that you need to help with sustaining muscle growth. Carbs are going to be the energy and the recovery support you need, again, to help with that process of building muscle. So keep that in mind. So, the muscle building timeline. So, when it comes to muscle building, it is a process, and a lot of times, again, we think it should happen instant. We think that our body should instantly adapt and we should start seeing results, as fast as possible because maybe we started a routine, we've been consistent with it. And a lot of times the repair process or the muscle building process is not as instant as we think it is. So what you need to keep in mind is that this is sort of the process that your body goes through as it is, repairing and rebuilding muscle. So from weeks 1 to 4, there's a neural adaptation phase, which is focused on better coordination, improved form, strength increases, but little visual change. So what you're going to notice, again, this is as you are building a consistent routine, you're going to notice the changes that are going to happen basically on the surface level. So you may be more focused, your form may be gradually improving in your routine, and you may notice a small amount of strength increases. And that's when it's going to happen in the 1 to 4 week sort of mark. But you're not really going to see visual changes. So from weeks 4 to 8, this is a more foundational phase. Again, we're still building that habit. We've been doing this for almost 2 months. This is where muscles are going to be able to handle more tension. There's going to be better control, and you're going to see subtle changes begin. So, as you're going from 8 to 12 plus weeks, so again, you're thinking of maybe roughly half a year. This is not something that's going to happen again, and this can vary too. Another thing to keep in mind is that your results are going to vary again depending on your intensity in your workouts, depending on, your nutrition, your recovery. So this is just a general guide on sort of the progression of growth when it comes to your routine. So 8 to 12 plus weeks are usually when visible progress is going to show, and this is your visible progress phase. So notable muscle fullness, strength gains, and body composition shifts. So you're going to notice a lot of those changes when it comes to your body composition and how you look physically. And then months 3 plus, when you get past that 3 plus month mark, is when you're really going to start to see transformation come into fruition. This is where muscle growth is going to become a little bit more obvious with consistent training and nutrition. Now, keep in mind, if you're not seeing results, as fast, it could be multiple different factors that may be preventing that. There's different factors that play into the results that you're going to get. And sometimes, too, it can take longer for different individuals to reach their goal. But generally, what you want to think about is long term. You don't want to see, gaining muscle as this instant process because it doesn't happen a lot of times in the way we expect. Those changes are going to happen in a subtle and gradual way. So that's what I'm trying to get across when we're talking about this sort of timeline. So the role of consistency over intensity. This is a big point to keep in mind. Consistency is what you need to really emphasize in your routine. So the common trap is the intensity driven sort of mindset. So going all out and then burning out, chasing soreness as a proof of progress, skipping days after hard workouts, and then starting over again and again. If you are constantly focusing on your intensity in your exercises and you're constantly trying to, again, see how hard you can push yourself, this is what is going to really hamper your growth and really, again, slow your growth because you're focusing on chasing this sort of, emotional feeling, for lack of a better term, and just trying to feel that intensity and that sort of, again, chasing really hard workouts, and then trying to see soreness as that indicator of progress. So you need to avoid focusing on the intensity driven mindset and shift over to the real driver of progress, which is consistency driven. So, in order to keep a habit really going and staying on track, the real driver of progress is going to be consistency. So, when you show up regularly, even on those low energy days, that's what's going to aid in progression. When you're training with intention, not exhaustion, when you're building habits you can repeat weekly. And like what I've mentioned time and time again, our habits need to be able to be repeated as often as possible. So it needs to be able to be integrated easily into your lifestyle. And then with this, you're able to, again, stack your progression over time. So what you're noticing with the consistency driven idea is that it's all about making your habits regular, really training with intention, and focusing on building, again, consistent progress over time. So, recovery is the missing piece. So, I did touch a little bit on the recovery side of things. This is one point that a lot of people tend to miss when they are getting adjusted to a routine. So, sleep is going to be your most anabolic tool. And what anabolic means is that it is beneficial for, again, muscle gain. It is going to be your most efficient muscle gain tool. So, deep sleep is when muscle repair and hormone release peak. So, the more that you go through deep sleep phases, during your cycle of sleep, this is when you're really going to amplify that muscle repair. Poor sleep is going to, again, slow your recovery, weaken your performance, and reduce your growth. So think of sleep as your overnight growth window. The more that you prioritize your sleep, making your sleep a consistent part of your routine, you have a consistent sort of, bedtime when you go to sleep, and you have a consistent wake time. This is really going to help in your progression. The next point is stress as a hidden recovery killer. So high stress is going to raise cortisol, which cortisol in itself is a stress hormone, to clarify. And a lot of times when you have high cortisol in your body, this is going to prevent it's going to prevent your sleep. It's really affecting how you sleep, your quality of sleep, if you have a high cortisol level. And again, this is going to interfere with the muscle repair at the same time. So life stress, along with training stress, is going to accumulate fatigue, which is going to lead to hidden volume that is going to, again, sort of really shake your, progress in your workouts. Managing stress is going to help your body actually use your workouts. You have to be able to find a way to manage your stress, be able to cope a little bit better through your routine, focusing on a better sleep schedule, really emphasizing recovery, on your rest days, active recovery, and things of that nature. So you need to make sure that you emphasize these points as well. The more that you focus on your recovery side of things and not just your workouts, the more you are going to see progress add up. Nutrition isn't optional for growth. So, with nutrition, again, this is basically connected to recovering in a lot of ways. But you have to keep in mind that even if you're working out really well, even if you're, going pretty, hard in your workouts, that even if you feel that you are, really training hard, this cannot necessarily lead to growth if you're not fueled properly and if you don't, again, have the proper nutrients that are going to aid in muscle repair. So you can't build without enough fuel. So if calories are too low or your body is prioritizing survival over growth, muscle building is going to require energy without it. Progress is going to slow or stall. So if your protein intake is inconsistent, this is going to really, again, affect your growth. So muscle repair depends on regular protein intake. Skipping meals or under eating protein limits your body's ability to rebuild stronger after workouts. Carbs are too low to support performance, so low energy. Generally, when you have a low carb intake, your energy is going to be lower. So this is going to lead to weaker workouts. So without enough carbs in your system, you can't train hard enough to create the stimulus needed for muscle growth. So keep that in mind as well. So your body needs to learn before it grows. So when I have clients who join on to my program, even if they may be pretty familiar, with, exercise and workouts themselves, a lot of times I still have them focus on a lot of your, beginner-based movements. And the reason being, and sometimes I do have clients that maybe if I've seen through their assessment, portion of the program that they are, pretty efficient in their movements, then maybe I would progress them, higher than your normal basic movement phase, which is, your basically the stabilization phase in workouts. But generally, again, actually, I would move them to strength endurance, I should say. I sort of misspoke there. So if they are already efficient in movement, usually I move them to, more higher intensity than just your basic movements to sort of clarify what I'm talking about there. But generally, when clients start out, they do the stabilization endurance phase. And this phase is generally focused on basic movement patterns. So this is basically doing more body weight movements, focusing on challenging your stability at the same time. And what this particular phase is, doing is that this is really preparing you to be ready for your heavier intensity or higher intensity based movements as you're going forward in your routine. So think of movement as a skill first. So for before your body is going to build muscle, it learns how to perform the movement efficiently. So the better your form is, the better your muscle activation is. And that's why I mention a lot of times with workouts, when you slow down and you take your time and you pace yourself, more muscle fibers are being activated. The slower you go, the more you control your form, you're activating more muscle fibers, which is going to lead to more muscle growth. Coordination comes before strength. So again, this goes back to the same concept like I mentioned. It's best that we focus on the basics as we're getting started before we just jump into weightlifting itself. So your nervous system is going to improve first. So it's going to help you recruit the right muscles at the right time before size increases. So again, this goes hand in hand with your form. If your form is really well and your form is where it needs to be, it is going to lead to you really gaining that coordination, and that strength in your nervous system is going to know what muscles to recruit. Stability builds the foundation. Like I mentioned, stability is a big part, especially when you start out, because your body learns how to control joints. It balances weight and stays braced. So when you do body weight workouts, again, like I mentioned, you don't have to rely on external weights like dumbbells, barbells, anything like that. All you're focusing on is your movement. So what this allows you to do is emphasize more of thinking about how you're moving in your workouts. How are you bracing your core? Are you properly aligning your body as you're going into a squat? Are you squatting over your second and your third toe? Is the movement efficient? Is it going to, again, help with you, you know, as you are doing these bodyweight workouts, is it going to help you progress further? Are you becoming more efficient? And the more that you usually do those workouts and put in the reps, it is going to help you reach that point to where you're activating those muscles more efficiently. You're being able to, again, improve, how you control your joints, you're balancing your weight as well as being able to brace your core as you're going through workouts so that again you are efficiently targeting those specific muscles and engaging those muscles as efficiently as possible. Progressive overload takes time to add up. So I've talked about progressive overload so many times, but again, it's still a crucial part of any workout routine. Small increases are going to drive big results over time. So, like what I mentioned with progressive overload is not the concept of constantly adding weights every single week. It's all about small increases over time. So adding 5 pounds or 1 to 2 reps or improving control may feel small, but repeated effort over weeks and months is going to create real growth. Strength gains are going to come before visible muscle, so your body gets stronger first. The strength allows you to create more tension, which eventually is going to lead to muscle size. Progress isn't linear day to day, so some days you're going to feel stronger, but other days you're not. So what matters is the overall trend in not only the workout. And this goes back to the concept of really thinking about our emotions, not relying on our emotions or our motivation, quote unquote, but our discipline to show up to the workouts. Just because you feel like you're not making progress or you have a bad day does not mean that progress isn't happening behind the scenes. And that's something that you really have to internalize when it comes to your routine. So, genetics, starting point, and individual differences. So, this is a big factor to put into consideration. And this is something I like to mention, especially when, some people feel like that they're not seeing progress as efficiently, as they think they could be. So genetics can influence how you respond. So like I mentioned earlier when we talked a little bit about, sort of progression from week to week, from 1 to 3 weeks, 4 to 12 weeks, and so on and so forth. The reason why I preface that with, okay, these are sort of just a clear general guideline on how you're going to see, progression happening in your workouts. And the reason I say that is that this is a general guideline and not really clear cut, is that everybody is going to respond to workouts completely different. Like for me, before I continue on here with our discussion, for me, whenever I again got started, is it took me quite a while before I really started to notice a decent amount, especially of physical changes. Because it seemed like for me, in my own personal fitness journey, it seemed like it took well over a year or a little bit, a year and a half to actually see the physical changes that I was expecting. So that's one thing you have to take into consideration is that depending on who you are, now you may notice too that some muscles may, get larger than others, or your body may just be able to adapt to workouts. Particular muscles may be stronger than others, and that's natural. Like some of your muscles may develop more. One thing with me, a muscle that develops really easily with me is my traps. And a lot of people ask me, what do you train for traps? And I usually always mention that there's nothing really crazy that I do. I do shoulder workouts, your normal shoulder presses, shoulder shrugs, military presses. I do all of those different movements, but do I do anything crazy to target them? No, it's just kind of genetic that they grow more than some other muscles. Like one muscle I think I struggle with and I've always wanted to develop is the chest. I'm slowly getting there. I feel like I'm getting there, but it feels like the chest is really always been hard for me to sort of develop that muscle. And again, for everybody, you're going to have a specific muscle group that is just going to be hard to develop. So, genetics again are going to influence how you respond to workouts. So, some people build muscle faster, recover quicker, or carry muscle differently, but everyone can make progress with consistency. So, don't get caught up if you're not, feel like you're not getting the results as fast as you thought you would get them. Focus on still staying in the process. So your starting point is going to shape your timeline. Beginners often see faster early progress, while more experienced lifters grow slower but more intentionally. So, if you're somebody who's pretty experienced, you've been weightlifting for a little bit, progress is not going to show as quickly. But usually with beginners, if you're just starting out and you know, your body is just not used to it, you're likely going to see those changes slightly faster. So muscle distribution is individual. So where you gain size first, again, is going to vary. Like I mentioned, my traps, I don't know why. That's just naturally how they are. They grow faster than a lot of other muscles. Like I said, everybody asks me how I grow my traps, but I don't do anything crazy. It's just a muscle that tends to grow pretty fast on me. So this is going to, again, your arms, your legs, your glutes, etc. It's going to vary from person to person on how the size of those muscles sort of come into fruition. And that's going to be normal. So keep that in mind as well. So muscle growth happens after the workout, not during it. So this is pretty much the big summary for today is again, your muscle growth is always post-workout. So again, training is the stimulus and not the result. Your workout creates stress and small muscle damage. So growth doesn't happen during the lift, it happens after it. Recovery is when a muscle is rebuilt. So your body repairs and strengthens muscle fibers during rest, making them more resilient over time. And again, sleep is your most anabolic tool. So deep sleep supports hormone balance and muscle repair. And poor sleep is going to slow progress even when training is great. So keep all of these points in mind. One thing I will mention when it comes to sleep is one thing I always recommend for people who really want to monitor their sleep better is to use some kind of sleep tracker, whether that be using a Fitbit or Apple Watch. The way that you can really sort of identify how your sleep is doing is by tracking it. So if you can, take the time to build a habit to track your sleep. And from what I've seen, the Apple Watch with how it measures, it's pretty close in the way that I notice it. And like I've mentioned, with sleep, you're going to go through separate phases as you sleep throughout the night. So there's usually your normal light sleep phase. You have your REM sleep phase, which is your rapid eye movement phase, and this is basically again your dreaming phase. And then you have your deep sleep phase, which is where a lot of recovery happens. So on Apple Watch, I know that usually deep sleep is in the purple. So generally, deep sleep is usually 20 to 40 minutes, at least for me, it has been. So it's usually your shortest sort of, period of sleep. But again, the way that you influence that is all based on, the quality of your overall recovery. And that's what's going to help that you increase those phases or increase especially your deep sleep phase. So I do recommend tracking if you really want to get a grasp on that. And I may come back to sleep in the future and go a little bit over more on sleep tracking. Thank you guys again for your time. I hope that you found this helpful and valuable. Again, you can check out my website, which is bponlinefitness.com. I also have an email address on here, brandonpart95@gmail.com, where you can reach out if you have any questions or concerns of anything I've discussed here today. Again, guys, I really appreciate your time. Every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do these streams. If there's any topics that you would love me to discuss in the future, feel free to let me know. Again, this will be uploaded to YouTube if you do miss it live. So definitely, again, take advantage of all the videos that I upload. Because there's so many that I archive on YouTube that you can check out. So take advantage of all that because it's all great information. And again, all this information is free to access. This is all valuable information that you can make use of in your routine. So take advantage of it. With all that being said, guys, I really appreciate your time. And again, I hope that this was helpful. I will see you guys in a YouTube live stream tomorrow, which I'll do at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, I'll be doing those every Thursday. So check those out. When you go to YouTube, you can click the notify me button on that particular stream, and it'll let you know when I do go live. So definitely take the time to check that out. But again, guys, I will see you guys next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time in the next live stream. So thank you guys once again for watching.